Oh, hey! Oh, how are we
Hey,
doing today, Nikola?
I'm good. Thanks, Chris. Thanks. How are you doing?
Oh, we are just having the best day. It is summer in Wisconsin, so that means wonderful weather all the time. So we're just really enjoying the day. How's the weather by you?
Yeah, it's also summer here in Austria. So yeah, I think it's the last day before some bad weather coming on Friday and this weekend. So we still enjoy the summer. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. And so you're coming to us from Austria?
Yes, Salzburg city, wonderful city in Austria. It's on border with Germany, so close to Munich.
I thought you were from Australia.
Kangaroos, the other one without kangaroos. Yeah.
so, so that's the thing from Dumb and Dumber. Yeah, throw another shrimp on the bobby. Ah,
Essentially, I'm not originally from Austria. I live in Austria.
okay,
I'm
where are you from
from
originally?
I'm from Serbia. That's former Yugoslavia, from Belgrade.
Oh, okay. All right, my
Then yeah.
wife's family's all from that area, so very
Oh,
interesting.
nice, nice. Okay, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and we got some wonderful people that are showing up in the chat. So, hey, Kevin, good to see you.
Good to see
Chris-
you all.
yeah, Christina's looking forward to this one. I am as well. This is gonna be a good one. And we,
Yes,
of
and
course, we got
congrats to
Mark
Christina
here.
for she got engaged, as far as I read a few days
That
ago.
you are straight. She got engaged. I believe Christina October. I think it's start of October is the wedding. I know she is in like offline mode, not available for any sort of like engagements or pop-ons and or speaking and stuff. So at some point in time in the future, we're gonna see Christina again. I got my fingers crossed. She's yeah. October 21st. Oh, coming up soon. Holy
Congratulations. Yeah.
cow. Oh, that is great. And so I know she also had her bachelorette party. I've not heard any tales of that, and maybe that's for a better thing. So that's
Yeah.
good too. And we also have Ollie joining us over on LinkedIn. So good to see you, Ollie. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, and so yeah, if wherever you're from, if when you join in the live stream, go ahead, leave us a little chat. Let us know what you're doing, what you got, what you're up to. Excited to like connect with everyone. Like, hey, Ebenezer. Oh, he was so excited when we posted on LinkedIn. He shared this out with his group. So Ebenezer, thank you for that share. Appreciate that.
Hey, sir. Hi, hi.
Oh, good deal, good deal. Well, we are for those of you who are new, this is our Wednesday Data God Lunch and Learn series that we do where we bring people in to help advance our knowledge and our growing capabilities. But while we call the people data gods and stuff like that, we're really just humans, and we're all people that are just looking to connect and do more. So, Nicola, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience and let us know a little bit about you? Like, how did young Nikola go from I want to be a firefighter to I know more about Synapse than almost anyone on the planet? How'd that
Oh
happen?
no, 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 no. Thanks, but that's not true. Yes, yeah. So I already started talking about myself when I mentioned that I'm from Belgrade. So yeah, I was born and grow up in Belgrade in Serbia. And when I was young, I didn't dream of becoming a firefighter, not even close to that. So I was dreaming of becoming a professional football or soccer player. Yeah, let's put it that way. So because in US you call it soccer, here in
Yeah.
Europe it's football. So
Okay.
everything in my life was related to football. I used to play football. I was a football referee. I also finished first year of football coaches. It's like a higher school.
Yeah.
And yeah, then I realized that I'm not so talented to be a successful football player, and it was decision between, yeah, keeping up with playing, like some semi-amateur
Yeah.
level, or going to college. And luckily, I decided to go to college. now from this, of course, from this perspective, yeah, it looks like a wiser decision. So
Well,
yeah, that's young Nikola. What was young Nikola dreamed about, and I'm still a big football fan. Yeah, I think you can
who's
all.
your team?
My
Yeah,
home team is Red Star Belgrade.
Belgrade Red Star. Okay,
Yes, and but my favorite team is Barcelona.
okay, all
So I
right.
started supporting them from 90s. So not just this last cycle of success. So from yes, I'm that old. So I started back then. Romario, Brazilian guy who was my favorite player, he moved to Barcelona from Netherlands, and then I started watch Barcelona because of him, and I fell in love with all the whole philosophy. And Romario left, but I continue supporting Barca, and yeah, nowadays I also support Barca. So that's my story.
Oh, that's fascinating. I loved soccer. We kind of I joke all the time that I'm a complete nerd. I haven't really done much in sports since like high school, or like I don't watch sports or anything like that. But I played soccer quite a bit, and I was very good for whatever level it was or whatnot. I scored 5 goals from defense, and
Oh,
that got the word of my performance got around to recruiters that they should start coming to our schools, but they didn't come until after I went. And then my brother was drafted for a semi-pro league, and he was making like they offered him like $30,000-$40,000 a year to go play soccer around, and I was like, man, that wasn't even an option until I.
yeah,
I
but I
was,
didn't know that you were also in soccer. That's good to know.
yeah, I love the sport. It's fantastic. I can't play anymore though.
Yeah, Johnny said Kuman and company. Yes, that's this golden generation. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Kuman, Stoichkov, and Guardiola. Yeah, Nadal, and many other players.
Oh, that is so fascinating. Oh, I love finding out about this stuff. So you went from soccer to college to computers. Is that the course there?
Uh, yeah, more or less. So I first used to work for a bank, the biggest
Okay.
bank in Serbia. Yeah, and then back then I started to work with data,
Okay.
and from there, so during my college days, I had some exposure to, let's say, classic programming like
Sure.
C sharp, Java, and stuff like that. But it was always SQL. So from the beginning,
Okay.
it was always SQL, and yeah, I'm still a huge fan.
Oh, and frankly, I think that's many people's story, and is you started in something, and then whatever it was you're doing, someone needed data, and then you
Exactly.
realize like, oh, I love this, and I'm doing it. It's kind of why
Yeah.
I like to highlight this, because everyone has a different journey, I think, in this space.
Yes,
So
that's true. That's true. So that's true. And what I also wanted to emphasize is that since I started working with the data, it was like always Microsoft stack with some short leap to Oracle and MicroStrategy, but other than that, it was all Microsoft stack. So yeah.
okay, well, that is quite exciting. Just yeah, I actually started much more on the Oracle side and then went to Microsoft, but I think that is a common journey. All right, but before we get into anything, I want to run through some rules and make some announcements here. So let's hit on those rules. Yeah, Oracle's not my favorite either. As always, we are following Guy in the Cube, Matthew Roche rules. Please prefix any questions with a Q to get them queued up. I've got a special queue they go into, makes it easier for us to manage. And please do not repeat or spam any questions. We haven't had any of that, so let's keep that at minimum. People with the monkey wrench in the chat, which is a lot of everyone, as a monkey wrench that's chatting. We'll block you from posting it if you do that. Okay, so just be aware of that. And I do want to call out, we have a new feature that we are introducing right this moment. We have the live Dex cam. Oh, this did not work out well. Come on, Dex. Well, okay, so it doesn't focus right, but we'll we'll throw him in from time to time. He is here and he's actively engaged and rapt attention with this conversation.
Your
But
CEO, right?
yes, yeah, my CEO. um, the DAX cam is live and it's working today, so excited for that. But so enough of the jibber jabber. This is our lunch and learn. So let's grab our favorite beverage, be a cup of tea, beer, coffee, whatever you've got at hand, and then let's take a collective sip and get into it. So.
I'm drinking water since it's evening in Austria, so
Okay. All right.
I need to sleep tonight. Yeah.
I understand. All right. So Nikola, we are here talking data warehouses. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What is? I mean, why would I care about Synapse Data Warehouse? I've got this brand new fabric. I've got Lakehouse. What the heck am I doing with the data warehouse? What's the deal there?
Yeah, the deal is if you are coming like from the background, like as you mentioned, Oracle, or I saw many people here in the chat also mentioning working with some relational database management systems in the past. There is a good chance that you learn SQL along the way, that you learn all the trenches of the language, how things are implemented in relational database management systems, and how things are implemented in enterprise data warehousing systems. So these systems are here for decades, let's say, I don't know, 40 years at least. So if you invest your time, your effort, if your company invested money, of course, in building solutions that work well, then I don't see any rational reason to just throw that off and jump into the wagon just because everyone talks about that. So nothing wrong with Lakehouse, nothing wrong with that approach at all. We will touch upon that a little bit later. But still, sometimes I'm really hesitant when I hear people just throwing some things that work well for years. If they are now, like not considered modern anymore, then let's throw that and implement something that is like a buzz at this moment. So I would say if you learned SQL, if your company invested in building a SQL solutions, then warehouse in Microsoft Fabric is the natural way to continue doing stuff with data in your company. So that's my opinion.
Okay, and so what's the difference, or and maybe um, okay, what's the difference between a data warehouse and a lake house?
Yeah,
What's the big case here?
great question. And as I told you before we started, I have one slide that maybe I can show. So what is a warehouse in Fabric? It's just that. It's a data warehouse. Data warehouse that we all know from the previous period. And if you're wondering what is the difference, I will come up in a few minutes to explain what is the difference between Lakehouse and warehouse. But in Fabric, if we are talking specifically about Fabric, and if you had some exposure to traditional data warehouses, the main difference is that in traditional data warehouses, data was stored in proprietary format. So if we are talking about SQL Server, we had those master database files, MDF, and log files, LDF, which stored the whole data on the disk. Now, instead, those proprietary formats, data is stored in open format. Now, Delta is de facto standard for storing data in open format, and Fabric also acquired and implemented that approach. So you can think of warehouse in a Fabric as traditional data warehouse. It's just the way data is stored in the background. As you will see later, it's just a SQL. So yeah, 99% of things that you could do in traditional data warehousing systems, you can do also in this new Synapse warehouse in Fabric. And yeah, maybe not this one, but the difference between Lakehouse and warehouse is It's just two endpoints. So today I got to steal this phrase from Johann Ludwig Bratas. Yeah, and I completely agree with what he said on one of social media. So it's just a different endpoint. Basically, data is stored the same way in both lakehouse and warehouse. So it's delta files in one lake. So no matter if you're using lakehouse or warehouse, your data will be stored in delta files in one lake. That's the same thing. The only difference is that once you create a lakehouse, you get automatically created SQL endpoint that you can use to query the data from the lakehouse by using T-SQL. But there are certain limitations. This one, so this endpoint that Lakehouse exposes supports only read operations from SQL. So you can't insert, update the data within those files in the lake stored in the Lakehouse. Unlike in Warehouse, where you have like full transactional support, data definition language, data manipulation language operations, so everything is supported. And as I said, if you're moving from traditional data warehousing, this Synapse data warehouse is the way to go. Also, the difference between those two is not just in that SQL cannot write data to the lakehouse. Different engines are used for processing data. And that's the reason why you can't use SQL to manipulate the data within the lakehouse. Lakehouse data that is stored in Lakehouse is processed using Spark engine. So there are multiple engines in Fabric. I sincerely hope that everyone who joined the call are aware of that. That there are multiple engines, analytical engines in Fabric, like Spark, like SQL. We will talk about that. That's Polaris engine from Synapse Serverless SQL. There is also Custo, so many different analytic engines in Fabric. Spark powers Lakehouse, Polaris, or Synapse, let's call it Synapse. Synapse powers Warehouse. So the main difference is in engines, and the main difference is which language you and your team, your organization prefer, or where most of the workloads are done. So if you already created, I don't know, hundreds of notebooks using Python, it's also, of course, it's easier to spin up Lakehouse and then continue using those notebooks. If your team is proficient with using Python, then of course Lakehouse is your choice. And we touched upon this. I will share this with the audience. We talked before we went live. Most of the newcomers in data, let's say in the last 10 years, they learned Python in college. And of course, there is a huge number of people around using Python. So I think the Fabric offers a great possibility for everyone in data world. So those, let's say, new guys can leverage their skills writing Python using Spark engine and manipulate data from the lakehouse. And guys like us who used to write SQL, I don't know Python. So if I used to write SQL, then I can just continue leveraging my skills by using Synapse Data Warehouse.
Yeah, but I think you hit a nail on the head. Is that you really have a lot of different capabilities that are or you have some different capabilities between the two, and depending upon your audience, you could pick the different solution, right? So if you have a lot of young people that are all looking to do Python, maybe that's a better path for you. But if you have existing legacy SQL data warehouses with tons of stored procedures, tons of write back capabilities, that data warehouse, may make more sense for you.
Absolutely. I mean, in the end, data is stored in the same format in the same place, so it's kind of interchangeable. And you can, of course, write cross database queries, so you can combine data between lakehouse and warehouse. And I know things are becoming a little bit confusing now, but the main thing to keep in mind, in my opinion, is if you want to use SQL for writing and So for changing data in the storage, then Lakehouse is not for you. You can't do it. You can just read data from Lakehouse by using SQL. So if you're a SQL person, Synapse Data Warehouse is a natural, I would say, logical choice for you. That's
Well,
to keep things simple.
you can use some SQL notebooks, but it is was it Spark SQL, right, or something like that? So it's a little bit of a different flavor, and because Johnny Winters has posted, you can use SQL notebooks too for lake houses, and I believe that's true. I've had some kind of
Yes,
challenges
that's true. That's Spark
with
SQL,
some of that
so
Spark
like a
SQL. Yeah.
special dialect of SQL. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's excellent. Um, so let's say I wanted to be in an environment that had both the SQL endpoint as well as had a data warehouse. How would you recommend someone set that up and configure it so that you're actually leveraging the tools that are available, or wouldn't you? Would you say choose one or the other for a team or a company?
Yeah. Put $1 in. Yeah, it's not a straightforward answer. Yeah. It really depends. So it depends on a lot of things. So it's not an easy solution, and I would here prefer to use. Maybe you've heard about this guy, Christopher Mano. I think it's how it's pronounced.
Okay.
Uh, he shares a lot of these nice looking drawings
Mm,
explaining different concepts in Fabric. Uh, if people are interested, I can share the link to his GitHub account where you can find all these drawings. And this is like a simplified version of in which case it
mm,
would make more sense to go lakehouse or warehouse way. It doesn't. These two are not necessarily intermutually exclude. So it doesn't mean that you cannot use both of them. You
sure.
can. But now the first question to ask yourself is, what is the current state of your data platform in
Hmm.
the organization, and what are the core skills of your data team? So if you have like more new people who are familiar with Python, will you force them to learn SQL and go warehouse way, or vice versa? Would you force people that are in SQL world for 20 years now to learn Python in order to switch to a lakehouse? It depends. I would say we have pros and cons for both options, but I wouldn't exclude using both in some circumstances. So this decision tree here can give you some like a first insight in which direction maybe to think.
Mm,
That's why I wanted to include it here. Maybe we can also discuss, and I would also like to hear because I see in the audience many competent people. So I would like to also, if they can share in chat their opinion on this one. So is this
sure.
relevant, or can we expand it somehow? I mean, this is based on Microsoft's documentation. So obviously there is some room for expansion, and obviously we are still talking about the product that is in preview, so many features are not comparable between those two.
Well,
We
I
talk,
think one of the things that we're missing here is the scalability associated with a lake house. That's something that I struggle to see how the warehouse is doing that. Has that really been addressed today, Nicola? Like, can I scale a warehouse without having to start and stop? Can I do that? Can I just add more nodes onto a warehouse today?
that's a good question. So you are not adding any nodes in Fabric. Basically you are paying for capacity, like similar to what we have in Power BI. The main difference is that now this capacity is being used by all Fabric artifacts. So
Right.
In Power BI, it's just Power BI. Here, it's Power BI plus everything you use for Fabric, like Lakehouse, Warehouse, I don't know, data flows and stuff like that for data preparation. I still didn't test this in production. There was no still opportunity to work with this in production, but you are not assigning any nodes anymore. So now in Warehouse, you have Polaris engine, which was introduced with Synapse Serverless SQL. And I also have one slide where there is a link to white paper that describes in technical details how this Polaris engine work. This is different, for example, from Databricks Photon, but it works similar way. So what happens is that it automatically scales. So once you issue the query, depending on query complexity and so on. So this is a multi-node system. So there is a one main node that takes the query and breaks this query into tasks. So those chunks of queries, those tasks, are being then distributed to worker nodes, and it automatically scales. So it can happen that it uses, maybe if it's a simple query, it uses just one node, but maybe it uses more than that. So this automatically scales up and down to support specific query and specific workloads, so concurrency and stuff like that. Now, I can't tell you, honestly, I can't tell you how this works in reality because we still didn't have a chance to test this in production.
Okay.
In Synapse Serverless, sometimes it was great, sometimes it was less great. So yeah,
What was it? Synapse? What? Proton? Photon?
Photon is in Databricks. In Synapse
Oh,
Serverless, it's called Polaris. Maybe I can just, yeah, here it is. So this is a simplified illustration how this thing works. So this is massively parallel processing architecture. You have
okay.
this distributed query processing engine. So once the query comes, this main node, this control node on the top, takes the query and breaks it into smaller tasks. Now, depending on different things, this query can be broken into 10 tasks or maybe 50. No one knows what happens in the background. But
Okay.
then those nodes, those working nodes, are completing those tasks and comprising results, returning back to control node that returns final result to the application. That's how Polaris engine work. In serverless, there were situations that, for example, one same query executes in 5 seconds. Tomorrow, this same query takes like 25 seconds. So it was kind of a black box, and that's why I'm hesitant to say this will scale well or not.
Okay.
Maybe, but we need production environment to put this thing into action, or at least some kind of let's say proof of concept that will simulate production environment with many concurrent users, with simple and more complex queries, and then see how these things scale. So that's kind of something that I'm curious to see how it will work once it goes GA.
So, when you're working with a massive parallel processing, so you've got your control node that is distributed across your other nodes, right? Often sort order of data is very important, so that when you run a query, you're querying all of your nodes, and it's able to grab the data that's necessary from each node and then bring it together, assemble it, and present it to you. Inside of Synapse, is the distribution of data going to be something that we have to continue to be concerned with or think about?
Not so much like in Synapse.
Okay.
So in Synapse, for dedicated pool, that was a completely different story. So
Hmm.
different engine, different rules. You were in charge of defining how many data warehouse units you want to use. There were 60 distributions, and there were many things that you could do
Hmm.
as a data engineer, developer, call it whatever you want, that you could do when distributing data. So once you create a table, there are different distribution options. hash, replica, and round robin. And depending which one you choose, it could have a great impact on the query execution and query performance consequentially. So you were in charge because Synapse was platform as a service. Now Fabric is a software as a service, meaning you don't have to care about how many data warehouse units you provisioned, which distributable distribution type you used, and so on and so on. As someone who is end user of software as a service, I would expect that someone else takes care of that. I would take care to write efficient SQL, of course, but those internal stuff I would expect in software as a service to work the best possible way. Let's call it that. So here in Fabric, in Warehouse, essentially you're reading from Parquet files. So it depends how your data is stored in Parquet files. And I also have some slides to describe how this works and what Microsoft did on top of classic Parquet file to additionally increase the performance of query processing.
So are you? I thought. Are you saying that the data warehouse is now running on Parquet files? I thought those were on proprietary.
Delta.
Delta's data lake, but I thought the warehouse was on MDF or something like that. Files?
No,
No, it's on
data
Parquet.
warehouse is also Delta. I mean, Delta is Parquet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's also Delta. Everything is Delta now in Fabric. So there are no proprietary formats anymore.
Okay.
So in theory, you can use whatever engine you want, and you can read from those Delta files. So whatever tool, whatever engine can process Delta format can read from your one lake, and that's how it's interchangeable also with other vendors, with other providers. And in Warehouse, it's also Delta files.
Oh, that's exciting because that means one common file type, and that also says at some point in time maybe these two texts will merge, right? Like, have full data warehouse running on top of your lake house. That'd be quite exciting.
We'll see how it evolves. Yeah. We'll see how it evolves. There are many now. The options are there are many more options than previously, obviously, because you can use interchangeably those Delta files. But we'll see how it goes and how it evolves. At this moment, I see someone mentioned, I think it's Johnny, that, for example, Direct Lake in Power BI is not supported in Warehouse. At this moment, this is a huge con compared to Lakehouse. But as far as I know, and from what I saw from Microsoft, when Fabric goes to GA, Direct Lake mode will be also available for Warehouse workloads. So
really,
yeah.
Well,
that's what Microsoft says unofficially. So we'll see. But yeah, if there is no Direct Lake mode, if there is no Direct Lake mode, I mean, honestly, in reality, Direct Lake mode will help maybe 5% of use cases, but those use cases are really huge.
Right.
So there are not many of them, but they are huge. And it would be great if we have this feature parity between Lakehouse and Warehouse. So that's for sure.
I completely agree. And Christina, I did the we don't know yet is the new depends. So I did put $1 into that, and I'm gonna do a little shameless plug here. On Friday, we're going to be doing our Fabric Fridays. We're going to be going over Dataflows Gen 2. We will be raising funds for the people of Maui who have lost everything. So Kevin and I have combined our forces. We're going to be doing a match of donations up to $1,000. So if people come and donate money during the live stream, we will match you dollar for dollar up to $1,000. So please share this with people. Want to really help the people of Maui out, because that's a horrible tragedy. And this cup will be emptied, and all of this will be going to them as well. So. So
that's a great initiative.
I haven't seen anyone else doing it, so I'm like, you know what? Let's do it, right?
Yeah. Thanks to you and Kevin. Yeah.
Thanks, Kevin. I told him I was doing these. Like, Okay, no, Kevin was all on board. He was very cool about that. So it was very cool that he's working with him on this stuff. So that's awesome. All right, so we're talking about parquet distribution. We're going to be going to direct lake. Um, you said that one of the things that was on this slide that you could do was be able to update multiple tables versus just one table at a time. Uh, what can you tell me about what does that mean? I don't understand that.
What exactly do you mean updating multiple tables versus one table?
So if you go back to that slide that you had of the differences,
Uh, this one, I
no,
suppose.
it was the graphic.
Ah, okay, the graphic. Okay, okay.
Yeah, there you go. Um, multi-table transactions. Lakehouse does not allow that. Warehouse does. What does that mean?
That means that you can use warehouse and write SQL to commit transactions to multiple tables, which is not currently supported with. I'm not sure if this is a limitation of the engine or if this is a limitation of. I think it's a limitation of engine, but not sure. And I don't think it's so important in many use cases. I would say this is not a huge, uh, uh, huge advantage
Differentiator?
of warehouse. Yeah,
Although I would imagine it's potentially something that's useful for data engineers that are managing near real time streams of data that you want to cast that out to places for consumption versus um, just update one and update another. Something like
exactly.
that.
So doing
Yeah.
doing in one run, doing multiple tables instead of doing many runs for a single table.
Sure, sure. Right. So instead of having a workbook node for each thing, like update this, update this, update this, it's just apply universally, which would make sense, especially if you're trying to maintain like atomic transactions and the acid nature of data. And like if you have a longer process, you'd want to do all the updates at once. And so you have consistency everywhere versus run a notebook, run a notebook, run a notebook, run a notebook, right?
Yeah, yeah. But I
Yeah.
don't. I think it's not a big differentiator at this moment. And
Okay.
yeah, not sure because I was not deep into Lakehouse. I'm not sure if this is going to be supported at some point in time. But yeah, at this moment, that's a difference.
Well, so I'm going. I mean, everything changes with time. But if you think about the different tech stacks and how they integrate, I thought Delta and the Spark notebooks could only make one connection at a time to a file. But maybe I'm wrong in that.
I'm not sure about that. Honestly, I don't know.
Okay. All right. All right. But another advantage of warehouses, well, and I guess has always been, I've liked the ability to like have stored procedures and views and those types of capabilities, right?
You can build views in Lakehouse. So using
Oh,
SQL, you can
okay.
you can build views. You can build inline table value functions. So that's allowed, and you can do it.
Hmm.
The only thing you can create store procedures, but you can't change the data in the file. So there uh, there will be more than 5%. Yeah, maybe, who knows. The thing that you cannot do is you can't, for example, within the store procedure, you can't change the data in the file using SQL. So you need to use Spark cluster. So you need
Hmm.
to use notebooks if you want to change the data in the file in the Lakehouse. But you can create views over SQL endpoint that Lakehouse exposes. So you can do that. At this moment, you can do that.
So one of the other challenges I've encountered in the past when evaluating like Lakehouse or like Databricks type solutions or even MPP solutions, even like Synapside. So if I think of like a SQL database, I'm able to define a primary key and I'm able to persist that and maintain that inside of my SQL database. And I know there's never a violation of that. I know inside the lakehouse that's a challenge because it's only a metadata driven. It's not an actual like a hard enforced primary key. What about in data warehouses? Is that a concern there too?
As far as I know, at this moment, it's also not enforced.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's a concern. But I think still that can be handled maybe in some other way. But I don't see this at this moment. As far as I know, please someone if someone knows, correct me if I'm wrong. In this moment, also within warehouse, you are not forced to use to apply this integrity.
Okay, yeah. Because honestly, it's been on every MPP platform out there. So it's like Synapse, Teradata, and Tita, Redshift, Snowflake. None of those MPP platforms enforce the key because of the distributed nature uh, of the file systems, right? So that's something that is sometimes good because you have speed and operations and write and whatnot, but bad because you have to now put management processes over it.
Yeah, I
Um,
think it's a trade-off between like data integrity and performance.
yeah, yep, yep, and scale, right? Like performance inside of a SQL server, which I mean, how big can a SQL server be? Terabyte, maybe two, maybe 3 terabytes in size. Um, a warehouse, like forget it, right? Like you're talking petabytes, right? That's pretty common, right?
Exactly. But also, what I wanted to mention that's great that you mentioned this now. What I also wanted to emphasize is that uh, not everyone needs Fabric Warehouse now.
Right,
That's also another thing to keep in mind somewhere in the back of your head. So don't jump if you have like 100 gigabytes of data, or I don't know, 1 terabyte. Then you can use other products and single node products. You don't necessarily need now to move everything to Fabric Warehouse. So it makes sense for specific cases, specific scenarios, as you mentioned, scalability and also other things. But when we are talking about scalability, if you have 100 gigabytes of data, you don't need Fabric Data Warehouse for sure.
right,
So
right.
Azure SQL DB, yeah, will work as a charm.
Well, and honestly, so I think that's where Power BI data mart starts to come into play, right? Like that makes it all of a sudden real easy to leverage that, and then you do get identity columns that are enforced. And I think that's what Johnny Winters asking is, does warehouse have identity columns? And
Oh, I don't know, to be honest.
I think the answer is yes, but it's not enforced is the challenge. Are we right, Johnny? I think Johnny asked us
I'm
knowing that
pretty sure it's
answer.
not enforced, but I yeah, as I think you have identity columns. You can create them, but they're not enforced.
Yep. Yeah, which is a challenge on scalable solutions, but it's an advantage of some of the smaller solutions that are out there, right? And so, uh, the way I see it, you have data marts, you have data warehouses, and you have lake houses, right? And you kind of have to decide on which feature set is relevant for you and your organization, and then like choose to move forward inside that space, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Now the choice is really really tough, as you said, and I completely agree. People are confused with so many offerings. They're not sure which one to choose, which is completely understandable. Previously, we had just relational database management systems, and it was decision between different vendors. So if you want to use SQL Server or Oracle or I don't know, Postgre or whatever, now it's within one vendor you have multiple different products. So which one to choose? That's $1 million question. And as I said, multiple things affect that decision. It's not just okay, we have enterprise data warehouse in place, we don't want lakehouse at all costs.
right.
Maybe your company will introduce some, I don't know, machine learning stuff, data science stuff, Maybe. So enterprise data warehouse is not the best solution for those workloads. So depends on many things.
Well, and I think it also depends on, um, we maybe it's the whole like, are you familiar with like improv, Nikola, where you like people just come up with crazy joke situations and like,
Okay.
give me a location and give me a food, and they like they create a story, through improv. I think there's some of that gonna have to happen by nature inside of Fabric. It's uh, do we want Synapse Warehouse? Yes, and we want to use Lakehouse for these situations, right? So, yeah, I want to have my data warehouse, and I'm going to use that as my gold layer for consumption and consistency for my analysts. But I want to use Lakehouse for my bronze and silver layers for my data engineering and my data scientists for who come in and build stuff. Um, I think the challenge here is that like you want your direct link to go against the file, so it's a little it's a yes and type thing here. So
Yeah, you can still leverage this approach if you want to create bronze and silver layer in Lakehouse,
hmm
and then build a warehouse on top of it to, for example, create star schema model. You can do this because cross database queries are allowed. So you can essentially query the data within one same query, coming from both warehouse and Lakehouse. So that's also legitimate approach.
yep, yep, spot on. That is exactly right. And so there's lots of different use cases inside of here. Any other big features that we should really be like focused in on and aware of when it comes to the SQL data warehouse or Synapse data warehouse?
Yeah, yeah. At this moment, it's still a raw product, and
Okay.
I believe that many features are missing or are somewhere halfway
Hmm.
there. So at this moment, it's absolutely not production ready.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's my opinion, at least. So I can't say that's true. That's my opinion.
Fair
Uh,
enough.
yeah, and at this moment, I'm looking forward to see if this promise for direct lake support for warehouse workloads will be fulfilled until GA. I'm just afraid that Microsoft doesn't push this too fast, to GA with many feature parity missing. Then
Sure.
we as a consultants will be in problem, because if client asks you, I have a data set which I can't use for import mode, and direct query is too slow,
hmm
and obvious choice then is direct lake, of course. But if direct lake is not supported in warehouse, what should you tell them? And let's say that they have a team which consists of 10 super experienced SQL professionals. So
Yeah.
it's a kind of, juggling. But at this moment, it's hard to say, this one is better or that one is better. I'm really curious, and I'm really looking forward to see once it goes to GA, which features we will have available. But obviously, warehouse is the way to go for companies that are strongly involved in SQL.
Sure. And I think there's a big advantage here because the regular Synapse, you either have dedicated pool or the on-demand pool. Is that what they call it? I forget. Um, there's
Hmm.
there's two different ways. You either have to like spin up the nodes to start running and executing, or you have your dedicated mode, and there's no scalability here. It's what you were highlighting before of that truly being scalable under the covers that I think is very promising for the Fabric Synapse spaces. That
Sorry
it,
for interrupting you. There
yeah,
was a scalability. There is. I mean, Synapse is not dead officially. So there is a scalability in Synapse, but with on-demand pool, you don't know what happens because everything is automatically
hmm
scaled up and down. Uh, with dedicated SQL pool, you are in charge. So you decide how many data warehouse units, so how many power you need for your workloads, and you need to manually move that slider right and left. So there is a scalability, there is a massively parallel processing, but in Fabric is as software as a service, you don't need to care about this thing like moving slider right and down. You just pay for the capacity and that's it.
Yeah, and I got to call out Johnny Winters here. In the mortal words of Ron Swanson, would Microsoft be better full-assing one thing instead of half-assing two? I think that is very smart. Yes, we dedicate your time to one thing, get it done, and then move on to the others.
And just to expand on this, will be interesting to see the cost implications. We still
Yes.
don't know which engine is more performant. So that would be also interesting to compare. If you have like same amount of data and you use Spark over Lakehouse versus SQL versus Polaris in warehouse, which one will consume more resources from the capacity? That's also valid consideration.
Yeah. Although I will say, watch Mim. Is very close
Absolutely.
on doing that performance testing and seeing how much each thing costs. I mean, holy cow! He pointed out that Dataflow Gen 2 was running at, I think he documented 5 to 10 times the cost, but it looks like that was a bug, and he had a follow up blog post that like they fixed that and it's now he's calling it the best best data flow that Microsoft has right now. So it's high praise from
that's
him.
why we said wait a little bit more, because there are bugs here and there, and
Yep.
yeah, you can be burned by those bugs. Yeah.
Well, and that's a great point. How do you recommend people or companies approach products that are built using an MVP development methodology where they get a feature out, it meets the minimum capabilities, but maybe it doesn't do everything, especially in the Synapse space where you talk about your data warehousing, which is an enterprise grade solution with enterprise customers. How do you manage that?
Yeah, a good question, and I don't have a straightforward answer, unfortunately.
All right.
Sorry. Yeah, in my opinion, if I'm allowed to say, Synapse was pushed too early, I
Okay.
think. Yeah, and we were waiting for another generation of the product, which never happened. So I think Fabric is this, let's say, next generation of Synapse. Yeah, but depending on their workload, so that's the most important thing. So you don't need all the parts of the architecture if your workloads don't require them. So if you don't, again, I will say, if you don't have huge amounts of data, if you don't have too many concurrent users, then it's good to stick with what best works for you in terms of performance, of course, and in terms of costs. So it's not just performance. If you throw money to buy, I don't know, Fabric Warehouse, and your queries runs faster, let's say instead of 400 milliseconds to 200 milliseconds, is it worth?
Sure. Sure. Especially with services that you're paying for by the SIP, maybe that makes a lot of sense to have that higher price capacity, but that it runs and then it shuts down, and you're not paying that additional longer running cost. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, no, that's good. All right, Nikola, we've been talking about Synapse data warehouse quite a bit here. What outside of the Synapse data warehouse is your favorite thing inside of Fabric um, that's not in the data warehouse?
Yeah, so as someone who is working mostly with Power BI, that's definitely Direct Lake, and I think that is really a huge upgrade to everything that we seen in Fabric. So Direct Lake and One Lake as a central place for storing the data. Lakehouse, warehouse thing is we already had them in Synapse in different flavor, but that's more or less, yeah, some some a little makeup, some improvements, of course, getting rid of some things that Microsoft thought are not necessary. But two I can't say game changers. Maybe Direct Lake will be game changer. We will see. But two huge things that happened that came with Fabric are One Lake and Direct Lake, and especially because I'm coming from Power BI environment. For me, Direct Lake, I can't wait to test it in production. So I saw some tests performed by different people. It looks promising. So it's almost like import mode, which is amazing, and I can't
Yeah.
believe. But yeah, that's what I'm most excited about.
Well, and I'd like to thank you for plugging my next live stream. So make sure you tune in next week on Wednesday, because we're going to be talking about Direct Lake with none other than the one and only Zoe Douglas. If you don't know Zoe, Zoe is the principal program manager on the Direct Lake feature. We're going to be talking about that now that it's out with XML endpoints, and now that you can actually uh, do this with any sort of like enterprise model. We've got Zoe coming on next week, and we're going to be delving deep into the Direct Lake capabilities. So, yeah, that's this. Make sure you tune in and join us for that conversation. All
For
right.
sure, that will be hilarious. Yeah.
Awesome. And I have one question in the queue that just kind of slipped in here. I don't want to miss this. Philip is asking from over on LinkedIn, will data mesh be the next generation of Fabric, or is Fabric the first iteration of data mesh?
So data mesh is already here. So if we take a look from this angle, then Fabric, then this second part of the question, I would say, will be correct answer.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. I think the domains and the lake house and one lake all, and heck, the reason why they chose Fabric as the name is that, this is all designed to create a fabric of data or a data mesh of data that you're using and you're sharing inside your organization, and it's done in one governable, explorable, accessible space that you could secure, you can lock down, and you can really allow people to delve deep into data without having to, incur horrible costs that previous
Exactly, but
generations were
it's a
forced to.
concept. It's more
Mhm.
conceptual
Yep.
approach than implementing this with, I don't know, using specific tool. It's more on a conceptual level.
Correct. Yeah, 100%. Although, for that matter, like, why didn't they name this? I mean, Microsoft, like SQL Server, they named it SQL, right? Like,
Yes.
why? Why did they call Fabric data mesh?
Yeah, but I think it's still relatively new, young idea, and yeah, let's see how it develops. And yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I am. I'm very excited to see all these things that we've got coming up. Excited about the XMLA endpoints. I'm gonna and yes, it's a whole people thing. I
exactly.
think I'm gonna admit I was starting down the path of like exploring and trying out the XMLA endpoints. We did it on a live stream. I was starting to work and had some issues and I had some successes. And then as I was starting to get more into it is when I confirmed that Zoe was going to be on the show next week, and I just like, okay, I'm going to stop. I want to like see what Zoe has to say about this. So I'm excited to talk more with her next week. So awesome.
Yeah, yeah, cool.
Nikola, we are at the end of our time. Before we go, where can people find you? What's the best way for people to reach you?
Yeah, so I'm pretty active on social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, now also Blue Sky. So yeah, feel free to connect if you like. If you want to chat about data, I'm really passionate about that. So yeah, really like to hang around with like-minded people. So feel free to reach out. And also I'm blogging at data-mozart.com. So yeah.
Oh, fantastic. And I hear a little birdie says you might have a new course out relatively soon.
Yes, one that I'm almost done with, doing for Pluralsight on data modeling, data querying, and data visualization. So my favorite topics.
Oh, that is absolutely fantastic. So please, everyone, connect with Nikola, like check out his stuff. He's really a sharp guy, does tons of great trainings. So if you're trying to get certified, Nikola's the man. He can really hook you guys up. So
Thanks, Chris. Before we leave,
yeah.
once again, huge thanks for inviting me. It was really both pleasure and honor to join you for this chat.
Oh, so excited to have you, Nikola. And I'm so excited that all of you joined us today. And, I'm happy that you're here every single time. I love talking about data. I love that we get to do that and help bring people along on this wonderful journey. It's a crazy world out there. Everyone, stay safe. Peace.
See you.
Baker Tilly Digital combines strategic industry insight and advanced technical expertise to uncover and solve your digital transformation challenges. If you're interested in learning more, check out our website at bakertilly.com/digital.